Flame rollout shields. Look for any sort of corrosion on the top. When you start seeing that rust and corrosion, typically we're backdrafting. Now, or I shouldn't say backdrafting, we got flame rolling out of the bottom there. Or some sort of heat coming out of there, and that's what's causing the corrosion. Now, the newer water heaters are all flame resistant water heaters. So it's a sealed burner. We're not going to be able to peek in there at all anymore. So things are just different, plain and simple. But nonetheless, I want you to know what it looks like and what it is. There's our burner on the inside. And again, we're not going to be able to see these on water heaters anymore. But that's just flimsy. It's a piece of thin metal. The line goes in there. We do have a pilot light in there. And then just heat coming out of the sides. And if it spills out, that's where we get that rust and corrosion on the top edge. And getting that little piece of metal back in there, I can't tell you what a pain in the butt that is. There's got to be like some secret agent decoder ring or something that you got to go in a certain way that I've never been able to figure out. All right. So the sealed ones, or the FLIRs, they're called, the flame resistant. They're all sealed. You can't get in there. I think I can. The next slide, yeah. So this is a close up with that blue lid removed. There's a button that we could do to light the pilot light, so we will get it in there. We do have a peephole to peek in there to see if it's lit, but nothing more. All right. If I go back a slide, those holes that are on the left and right, that's where my combustion air goes in. And as it goes in, it goes to the top of the tank, and then it comes, or I should say top of the vessel, and then it comes over an edge, and then it comes back into where the burner needs it for the combustion air. This is supposed to stop any gas fumes or anything else from being able to get to the fire and causing an explosion or a flame on there. By the way, that is the water heater that was in my old house. I did have to replace the original one, and I did try and bring it down the stairs all by myself, and I did put that dent into that water heater. Just saying. If a water heater's in a garage, and this is more of an exterior garage thing, anything that has a gas appliance, the flames, or anything in a garage has to be at least 18 inches off the ground. And anything that is an ignition source, to be clear, has to be 18 inches off the ground. Instant hot water heaters. I did it. Instant water heaters. They're becoming whole house ones. I put one in my house, and me personally, I think it's phenomenal. Never run out of hot water. We could take 2 showers at the same time. The drawback is they do require maintenance. And they do need to be flushed, and they have cleaning kits that get in there because the pipes are so thin on those that there's a lot of calcium buildup on it. So it is something that needs to be done. Private wells or private waste systems. We talked about wells already. So we'll get into the septic systems. Again, the septic systems are going to be done by a well and septic guy, and they're going to be given the certificate. That gets done from the seller of the home, and it usually doesn't fall under our realm of things that we do, for lack of a better word. They're usually buried. There's usually going to be a map so that if somebody has to dig out that opening at the top and find out where it is, the guys that actually do this sort of stuff, they actually swear by those divining rods. And they're able to find these tanks quick and easy with that. I still don't believe it, but, I really don't think they were lying. So I do believe they believe it. But nonetheless, there's 3 layers inside of a tank, all right? So as we're looking at this tank, the wastewater comes in from the left and goes out to the field on the right-hand side. I want you to know the 3 names of the 3 layers. So the sludge is the solid layer, so the sludge is at the bottom. The liquid is called the effluent, E-F-F, effluent, I think it's L-U-E-A-N-T. And then the foam that's at the top of everything else, that's called a scum. So whenever we called somebody scum, we were referring to the foam that flows on top of these septic pits, which I don't think is a nice thing to say, all right? Most of this we want to always be water. That scum layer, or the foam layer, that should be less than 2 inches. The sludge layer on the bottom as well, I forgot the exact number on it, but that should be like less than a foot. I think one of our next slides goes ahead and shows that. On some of these pits, we're going to have 2 tanks in them. So they're going to kind of keep the sludge back a little bit longer and just let the effluent pass through. Some of them actually have 3 tanks as well. So here's the slide that I was looking for. 24 inches is what we want to keep it under, and we're not going to know that. When that happens, when it gets thicker than that, then it's not going to really be able to eat itself up with bacteria anymore. So somebody's going to have to go in there and scoop that all out. And I think the tool that they use to scoop it out is called a honey dipper. I think it's a fitting term for something like that. And get it all nice and clean. Things I do like to coach my clients on when they do have a septic field is using any sort of bleach products. And putting that in there. It kills bacteria. And we really don't want to kill the bacteria that's inside this tank because we need that bacteria to eat away at that sludge and keep changing that back to a liquid so we can get it out into the earth and let it drain into the earth safely. I've heard people putting, Rid-X is one product that they put in there. Another one is quick rise yeast I've heard of people putting in there. Flushing those down the toilets once a month just to be proactive and keeping that bacteria growing and keeping it alive, I think is a good thing. Now, I am no way an expert on this, so I'm just sharing information that I heard. I've always lived in an urban area. I've never had to deal with a septic field or septic pit. So these are just the numbers that I'm hearing from other people where it comes to it. But yeah, if you have a bleach that goes in there that's going to kill it, most people use on their washing machine, they'll take that gray water and they'll put that on top of the earth. They won't flow that through their septic pit that comes in there. And same thing with chemicals that you flush down your toilet. You want to be careful that you're not going to kill the bacteria in the toilet. So we come out of the house, we go into the septic pit. From the septic pit, it's going to have those different baffles in there, and that's where the cleaning is going to happen. Then we have the effluent or the liquid is going to start going out into our leach field. All right. Typically, those are 2 to 3 feet deep. Excuse me. Those are 2 to 3 feet deep. As we come out of that catch basin, that's that big rectangle at the top. It's going to go through a distribution box. Then those perforated tiles are going to be typically 10 feet apart. They're going to have perforated tubes in them. They're going to allow for the water to drain through. There's going to be a whole bunch of gravel in there as well, so we can let the water drain through easily that way as well. When everything's working properly, we're just going to see a little bit of greener grass wherever these things are because it's going to be watered and fertilized better than anybody else is. So when it's not working well, you're going to start getting sewer smells in the backyard. Any sewer smells outside is an indicator that something's going wrong. Now, we don't necessarily have to diagnose it. It doesn't fall under our field of work. But I think we would be doing our client this service if we didn't tell them that they need to get somebody out here who's aware of this. So, where we can keep stuff in tile beds too, we got to stay 50 feet away from lakes, rivers, things like that. 15 feet away from a house, keep it away from the lot lines, keep it away the septic pit from the house as well. Sump pumps. This is a typical pump. I'm a firm believer of battery backups as well. Most of them are going to be electric powered. There's going to be some sort of a float valve in there that is, once the water gets to a certain height, the pump automatically turns on, pumps the water out. Usually there's going to be a screen at the bottom of this pump. And so we want to be careful with the sump pump that there's no debris that's tossed into that. We want to make sure there's no paper or anything else that could go ahead and clog this screen up and prevent that water from flowing. Obviously, if it did, then that water is going to come into the house. Battery backups. Typically, it's going to be a secondary pump. Again, in our area, because we do have a lot of basements here, I'm a big firm believer of that. But it's not just for power outages. Sometimes you're going to get a pump failure. So at least now I got a secondary pump that's going to step up and pick it in there. Maybe I'll get so much rain that one pump isn't able to remove the water as fast as it's coming in. So now I'm going to have two pumps that are going to be able to remove that water. So it's more than just for power outages, battery backups. Again, I think they're just fantastic. All right. I've seen these a few different times, and they work with siphoning water. And, and again, you're not using batteries or charging as long as your as long as your water company is able to provide water to you, then your battery backup is going to work as well. Or I shouldn't say battery backup, your backup sump pump is going to be able to work. This one ends up, when it calls to operate, it allows water to flow and shoots it up there, creating a Venturi effect. That Venturi effect is going to siphon in the water around it, and that's going to get it out of the system. So it doesn't require a battery or charging or anything else with it. It just needs a water pressure to be connected to it. Ejector pumps, also known as sewage ejector pumps, these are designed to get rid of waste materials. And I do have some gross conversations with my clients whenever they move into a home with the ejector pumps. We as human beings, we have habits, and not all of them are good habits. So sometimes we're going to, flush fish, tampons, condoms, different items that aren't able to be chewed up, nylons, they're not able to be chewed up by these pumps. And they're just going to get that pump and bind it up. And those things are expensive. They're almost $1,000, if not more, for a good ejector pump. So make it clear that the only thing that goes in there is feces and toilet paper, not even wet wipes, all right? Or even if it says it's disposable and it's safe for sewer systems, those will get in there and gum the works. And then if it just turns into a glob of mud and it doesn't get disintegrated, then that pump is going to overheat or bind up, and then you're going to end up replacing it. And you don't want to go into wastewater tanks to replace a pump. So the longer we can make this thing last, the better off everything would be. All right. I do want you to know that ejector pits need to be vented, they need to be sealed, and they need to go into the raw sewage lines. All right. Where some pumps, they don't. All right. Some pumps don't need to be sealed. It's nice, unless it's a radon system. We don't necessarily have to seal them up. But they're going to go either outside on the surface. Now, the city of Chicago is unique in the state of Illinois. The city of Chicago, because they put their houses so close together that they're only 3 feet away from each other for those gangways, sometimes 5, they don't want all that water running on the surface. So they put their sump pumps into their raw sewage. They don't discharge them outside. It's not wrong if you discharge them outside, but they encourage you to put them into the raw sewage. All right. None of the suburbs allow you to do that. They all have to be, only ejector pumps can go into the raw sewage. Some pumps have to go outside. All right. So that's really all I have for plumbing. I think I have a few other slides here. Let me just scan these things. These were all drawings that I was working with and trying to make things go. But that's pretty much it that I have. And we'll put it on there. Sorry for all that moving. So if anybody has any questions, shoot it out. Otherwise, it looks like we went about 2 hours and 40 minutes. So I thank you. I appreciate your time. I hope this helps. If you picked up 1 or 2 things, that makes me happy. If you picked up nothing, come on and work for me. All right, I would love to have you. But nonetheless, unless any questions pop up real soon, I'm going to go ahead and end this. And I have nothing else to say other than thank you.